So Kong and Godzilla are finally going to tangle once again on the big screen very soon. A showdown that will live up to their last awe-inspiring battle, I'm sure. But I've been pretty uninterested in these monster movies since Godzilla in 2014, so before their battle and inevitable team-up to fight the real bad guy, I thought I'd check out their two most recent movies to build up to this confrontation. I'm Dennis, and this is my watch list. Double feature special! Kong Skull Island is the latest reboot of the King Kong franchise, and the second movie in the MonsterVerse, which will inevitably result in Kong and Godzilla bumping uglies. This film came out in 2017 with an absolutely star-studded cast of actors who were all pretty much wasted. There's Tom Hiddleston, Sam Jackson, Brie Larson, John Goodman, and even a surprisingly large role for John C. Reilly. The film was directed by Jordan Vogt-Roberts and takes the typical Kong mythology and focuses solely on the Skull Island stuff, which this film sets in 1973, right at the end of America's involvement in the Vietnam War. So I had every opportunity to see this movie since its release, but I was never that eager to watch it because I had only heard mildly positive things. This movie never got the attention that either Godzilla 2014 or Godzilla King of the Monsters received, either good or bad. And to be honest right out of the gate, the movie was about what I was expecting and almost what I wanted. This is a pretty fun down-the-middle popcorn movie. The visuals all look great, and the atmosphere the movie is able to set up on Skull Island and within the native settlement is really good. Big credit to the set designers and special effects department. Without them, this movie would be a flat mess. I actually really like most of this movie as long as there aren't any characters talking at the time. The characters are where this movie loses me, and for a film called Kong, you'd expect the humans to not be as big a deal, but as we've learned from past monster movies, pretty much everything hinges on the humans because they are 90% of the movie's focus. In a movie with a cast that is this big, it's really no surprise that the characters aren't written that well and that the script doesn't have enough space for every character to really be fleshed out. Most of the characters are Vietnam cliches, which is fine. I don't mind some character archetypes in my monster movies. While the movie is silly, the characters bounce back and forth between being serious and cracking uncharacteristic jokes. Take this scene between Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, and John C. Reilly where they are talking about the name of the lizard creatures. This scene ends with a bit of quick back and forth improv comedy that just comes out of nowhere for Larson and Hiddleston's characters. Taken as just a scene, the comedy is a little bland, but it does work, in large part thanks to John C. Reilly. But within the context of the whole film, this is the first time we see these two brave leads goof around like this, but it's played straight so it doesn't even feel natural. Just some weird Marvel-style quips thrown in for the sake of it. This happens a couple times throughout the movie where it just felt like the writer was adding in lines they thought were funny, but they were lines that didn't feel right to the characters delivering them. But back to the characters. Honestly, pretty much everyone falls flat for me in this movie. No one is bad, but it just seems like no one had anything to work with. It almost felt like the actors had zero charisma in this movie, which is nuts because we're talking about Sam Jackson, John Goodman, and Tom Hiddleston. These are charismatic actors. It just felt like maybe the direction for the actors wasn't handled properly or something. I don't know. I can't place my finger on it, but none of the acting ever really seemed to come together. Now, onto the script. This movie has a really bad script, as I alluded to above. Particularly, the script just doesn't know how to communicate between its characters without making some random joke or without coming off as cliche. But that's not all. The way some characters act seems to make no sense and serves only to set up an interesting new plot point or set piece. Take this scene with Brie Larson's character. She just exited the native village after hearing some moaning noise and then pretty quickly comes across this bison thing with a helicopter on top of it. Instead of running back to the very nearby village to get more people to help, she just runs over and tries to lift the entire helicopter by herself. She ain't Captain Marvel yet, why the hell did she think this would work? Luckily for her, Kong shows up and lifts the helicopter for her, and they share a moment of brief eye contact. So of course, this scene was just done as some lazy establishing work that Brie Larson and Kong now have a relationship which will be important later. Then there's another scene later on where the humans are being attacked by pterodactyl things and there's a bunch of green smoke around. Tom Hiddleston puts on a gas mask, grabs a katana, and cuts these fuckers to bits with the green smoke background in a really cool visual moment, but it only lasts 30 seconds and then he just takes the mask off and it's over. A cool visual, but a scene that kind of felt forced in just to make the cool visual happen. Also, there is one scene of utter plot convenience that is fucking disgusting. One of the soldiers they are looking for, Chapman, was eaten by a lizard guy earlier in the movie, but none of the characters know this yet. So as the main characters are hiding from a couple of lizards, one of them just coughs up Chapman's skull with his dog tags wrapped around it right in front of Tom Hiddleston. Well, isn't that the most convenient thing of all time? Little Lizard Burp tells the character exactly what he needed to know without even being aware he needed to know it yet. I don't know if I've ever seen a more contrived and disgusting example of plot convenience in my life. I mean, the dog tags are wrapped around the skull? Come on, man. Samuel L. Jackson is doing his best to come off as some lunatic Vietnam War captain, but his stare down with a CGI monkey was so silly, and his diehard motivation to kill that monkey, despite what anyone tells him, is paper thin and annoying. Finally, John C. Reilly gets way too much screen time in this movie, and he's probably the best character. At least he has a personality, but most of his screen time is spent talking about 1940 stuff and being like, whoa, 1970 stuff is crazy.
Hold the phone here, Churchill. Russia was our ally. Now you're saying we're at war with them?
It's more of a Cold War.
Cold War, like they take the summers off?
So unnecessary. And the rest of the characters really don't get much else to do. The black nerd guy and his Asian lady sidekick are pretty much useless the entire movie until one moment in the final battle. The scientist from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Good Place is an actual waste of space, and most of the Vietnam guys are too. The one duo of side characters that really worked for me was Cole and Mills. I felt they had a bit of a cliche dynamic, but I really liked how they related to each other and how even without lines of dialogue, you could tell they had a special bond. I just think the actors had really good chemistry together though, and it was nothing in the script. Notice how I really haven't even talked about Kong for this entire review? Well, that's because he really isn't that important to this movie. He's more a force of nature than a character for the majority of the film, and then he just becomes a superhero in the last act so that he can fight the big evil lizard and save the humans. I have no problem with Kong being a force of nature. That's how he should be represented, but what makes King Kong such an interesting character in his past iterations is that he actually has thoughts and feelings and a tragic story that isn't just I am giant monkey and I protect island. Don't get me wrong, he's really cool in this movie, and the fighting and visuals involving him are impressive, but I think this may just be the side effect of trying to stuff the story of King Kong into a franchise leading up to a battle with an even bigger lizard. Unfortunately, his story suffers by keeping him from really progressing until after he meets Godzilla. The movie doesn't even end with Kong being taken off the island, so I'm honestly not even sure what the point of this movie was besides saying that Kong exists and scientists know about it. I just wish we got more Kong. So overall, this movie was a pretty hollow blockbuster with some cool visuals and effects. The cast was wasted and largely seemed to be in it just for a paycheck. I don't believe for a second Tom Hiddleston or Brie Larson are very passionate about King Kong as a character, which is best exemplified by the cringy post-credit sequence which teases they'll both be back for a sequel, which clearly is never happening. But if you're into dumb, fun monster movies, then this isn't a bad watch. I'd give it a 3 out of 5 stars, kind of just mindless entertainment, which isn't always a bad thing, and this did make me excited to see how Kong matches up with Godzilla, so nice corporate strategy, guys. Now, moving on to the Godzilla portion of this video. Godzilla, King of the Monsters is a 2019 sequel to Godzilla 2014, and I guess technically the third movie in the MonsterVerse following Kong Skull Island's release in 2017. This movie completely switches up the cast and crew from the original, bringing in director Michael Daughtry, known for such films as Trick or Treat and Krampus. The film clings to the one remaining cast member who everyone thought was cool from the first one, Ken Watanabe, then wiped out everyone from existence and brought in Kyle Chandler, Vera Farmiga, and Millie Bobby Brown as the lead family trio of what is supposed to be a monster smackdown movie for the ages. Who do you think gets more screen time, Godzilla or Eleven? So to address the giant woolly mammoth in the room, Godzilla 2014 wasn't the best movie I'd ever seen, but I remember liking it well enough. Did I want to see more Godzilla fighting action? Yes. Have I ever had the urge to watch some soldier make his way back to San Francisco with Godzilla looming in the background the entire film again? No. The Godzilla parts were cool, but the human parts were blah. And that's about how I felt in this movie. A movie that seemed like it had actually learned the critical lessons of Godzilla 2014 at first, but eventually backslid into the same bad habits. In fact, this movie almost doubles down on the human parts by introducing a convoluted and cliché family drama / world-ending betrayal plot that unravels across 3 lead characters, all while dealing with the side characters for each lead character, including Thomas Middleditch, Sally Hawkins, O'Shea Jackson Jr., Ken Watanabe, Charles Dance, and more. This movie is packed with human drama, but that doesn't become a clear problem until the second act of the movie. I actually really enjoyed the first act. Yes, it involved a lot of human time, but it felt like that time was being utilized to build up to and show off the monsters who should be the stars of the film. In the first act, we are introduced to Mothra from Vera Farmiga and Millie Bobby Brown's characters, then we catch a glimpse of Godzilla swimming around from Kyle Chandler and crew, and then when both groups of characters meet, it is also during the build-up and release of King Ghidorah, which is a fantastic spectacle to watch. Finally, in the chaos surrounding all of that, Godzilla shows up to lay the smackdown on Ghidorah, only to get kind of punked like a bitch and Ghidorah flies off. Overall, I think the monsters look fantastic in this movie, and the effects and atmosphere surrounding them help to add to the sense that they are forces of nature. And I absolutely love that we get to see a fight between Godzilla and Ghidorah early into the movie. It wasn't an amazing fight, but it gave me hope. Hope that was swiftly dashed. So I guess I should say that going on in the foreground of all this cool background monster buildup is this family drama between Emma, Mark, and Madison. This movie starts with a Batman vs Superman style introduction of these characters where we meet them all at the site of the disastrous event that ended the first movie, then we jump forward 5 years to the present day. Their son Andrew was killed in the Godzilla monster battle from the first movie, which led Mark and Emma to separate. Mark left his work at Monarch while Emma remained to continue her research. They are scientists. For anyone who doesn't know or needs a refresher, Monarch is like the secret monster intel organization that links up all the MonsterVerse movies. After the introduction of Mothra, Charles Dance shows up with his eco-terrorists and appears to kidnap Emma and Madison, as well as steal a device known as the Orca, which can communicate with the monsters using biofrequency whale noises. Duh. So Mark is brought in by the Monarch crew to help track down the Orca in order to find and save Emma and Madison. Mark also has some understandable personal beef with Godzilla, which Godzilla seems to be aware of because they have at least 3 meaningful stare-downs over the course of this movie. However, when Mark does get the opportunity to save Emma and Madison, it turns out that they are in league with the eco-terrorists and Emma frees Ghidorah. So yeah, there's a lot of family drama going on while dealing with a secret monster hunting organization battling against eco-terrorists, all while the US military wants to take over Monarch and kill every monster on Earth. There's a hell of a lot going on with this plot very early on. Should have been a red flag, but I was so distracted by the monsters. From here, the movie just goes around in circles, padding out the runtime until the inevitable final fight between Ghidorah and Godzilla. Really, from the first monster fight, Godzilla is pretty much entirely absent until the end. We only see him again for a brief confrontation with Ghidorah, which ends with some kind of oxygen-sucking nuke that kills Godzilla, aka just gives the movie an excuse to take him out so they can build to the final fight. Classic DBZ fight pacing techniques here. Unfortunately, instead of really getting anything else cool, we just get a circle jerk of human drama moaning and groaning about monster babble. Vera Farmiga needs to constantly be reminded that she's a bad lady, but doing it for the right reasons, because of course this movie is another one where the villain is just doing everything she's doing because humanity is the real evil. Blah. Then finally, the completely hollow and nonsensical shell of Ken Watanabe's character decides he doesn't want to be in these movies anymore and nukes himself to save Godzilla, and then it's the big fight at Fenway Park. We get Godzilla v King Ghidorah with Mothra v Rodan thrown in for good measure. And the whole fight is fine. Honestly, I thought the first fight was better choreographed and more exciting. This fight is just kind of a big monster mash. A bit of a visual mess, but if you like it, more power to you. I thought it was a bit underwhelming for all the build-up. Then the movie just ends, with the world essentially completely destroyed by the plethora of giant monsters that King Ghidorah commanded, and Godzilla is deemed king of the world. At the end of the day, I just don't care about these humans, no matter how involved in the plot they are through their scientific organizations, and I definitely don't care about their cartoonish family drama. I guess I have to give them credit. I didn't see the twist with Vera Farmiga coming, but they went and made her sympathetic instead of doubling down and actually making her evil. I'm sick of these bad guys with good hearts trope. Give us a fucking bad guy if you insist on forcing human villains into the plot. Not some wishy-washy, "Aw shucks, I didn't understand the error of my ways until it was too late, but I'm really a nice lady" villain. Fuck you. You wanted to do a global genocide. Beyond irredeemable, so don't try and make me care about her. I just want to see the monsters. Just seeing them was the best part of the movie. I don't understand their thought process here. If they can't afford to make 2 hours of monsters, then don't make a 2-hour movie. It's that simple. Hell, make it an hour, and people would be beyond satisfied if it's just about the monsters. You'd make money. So those are my thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's another frustrating addition to the modern Godzilla franchise with stunning visuals that make you yearn for more but dread another sequel because of the forced human plots and convoluted interorganizational politics. I give this movie 2.5 stars. It's just fine. I gave it a bit of a hard time in this review. Maybe it's better than 2014, but I can't see myself rewatching either anytime soon. To wrap up my thoughts on both of these movies, I liked Kong slightly more. In Godzilla King of the Monsters, even though the effects and acting are better and the monster fights are slightly more frequent than in Kong, the human characters bored the piss out of me in this movie. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to like Kong more, but Godzilla 2 really is all downhill from the intro of King Ghidorah and his fight with Godzilla. The final battle wasn't that engaging, and the amount of people running around screaming for each other sucked all the fun out of it. After watching both of these movies, I'm not really expecting much from Godzilla vs. Kong in regards to story, but I think they could pull off some impressive fights that I wish I was able to see in a theater with a crowd of excited people eager to watch a monkey sucker punch a lizard. So I'll keep an open mind going forward, but I have the sneaking suspicion that the movie is going to be bogged down with unexciting human drama, especially given the rumors about a certain metal lizard's involvement. Fingers crossed they at least play up the humans and make them super dumb, cheesy, and fun, but likely instead they'll be forced conduits for melodrama. Either way, I'm excited for the fight. But what did you think of these two movies? Do you like one more than the other? Who do you think would win in a fight between these two monsters? Let me know in the comments, and keep an eye on the channel for my Godzilla vs. Kong review, which will be dropping a week from today. So if you like this and you want to hear me talk about more nonsense, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching this, I really appreciate it, and until next time, I'll shut up.